Alright guys, just wanted to go over the beginner banner and share my thoughts on which 5-star character you should likely aim for between the 5 available characters. Do bear in mind if there are any changes made to these characters on the day of release, it could affect who to prioritize. So the characters we will have available on the banner are Verina, Calcharo, Jianxin, Encore and Lingyang. Now I'm going to break these characters down into 2 sections. You have DPS characters being Calcharo, Encore and Lingyang. Then you have support/sustain characters being Verina and Jianxin. Now something that you can pretty much apply to majority of gacha games is that support characters have insane longevity in comparison to DPS characters. An example being in Genshin, today you tend to find players still using Mona to hit those high numbers with a DPS character. But someone like Diluc you wouldn't use since there's just a ton of DPS characters that have released since that are much stronger. So taking that into consideration, I'll rank these characters from worst to best based on their performance, utility and longevity. Do note before anything, if you want to aim for a character because you like their design and would use them regardless, I'm all for supporting it. This is just to help players that want to really be efficient with their choice. 5th place would be Lingyang. Now as much as I do like his combat style being the brawler type, he's a furry. Moving on to number 4, I'm only joking. He's a character you would be able to use early game and would be quite fun as he is a fast-paced glacier character. His basic attack is a string of 5 attacks and his resonance skill kinda plays in with his basic attack. So anytime during his basic attack you can use his skill which doesn't interrupt the basic attack string and it will pop whilst he is dealing those hits to an enemy. So it will essentially become a 6 attack string with one of those hits being enhanced. His ultimate is pretty cool too, where he switches more into aerial combat and it will last for 5-ish seconds. He's able to bombard his enemies with basic attacks whilst in midair, and if you do use your skill you can delay the time a bit, so you do want to stay in the alt state for as long as you can. Lingyang, as I said, is alright to use early game, but he does fall off quite a bit later down the line. Especially when it comes to endgame content and is outperformed by characters such as Jiyan, which is a 4-star DPS and is pretty much broken just so you know. Seriously praying she doesn't get nerfed. But yeah, with Lingyang I would say is an okay DPS, but they are much better options. 4th place would be Jianxin. Now she is a support character and after what I mentioned earlier you may be a bit surprised to see why she is quite low. Let me explain. On paper, Jianxin does quite a few things. She can provide a heal as well as a shield, AoE crowd control, parry, and can buff ult damage when switching out for the next character. When it comes to charging up the gauge in order to heal and pop that shield, it does take quite a while where you are just throwing out a ton of basic attacks. After that, you'll think, okay, enough stalling. Yeah, not quite done there. Then you need to use a charge attack to heal and pop the shield, which takes an unnecessary amount of time in a game which has very fast paced boss battles. The AoE crowd control she can deal is also not effective against bosses, which isn't helpful when it comes to endgame content where you face quite a few bosses. It would be quite effective just against normal enemies in the open world. Now when it comes to the ult damage buff for your characters, this is going to be put to shame when Verina, the other 5-star support you can pick up, provides an attack buff opposed to an ult damage buff. So when you have characters like Jiyan, Jianxin's ultimate damage buff wouldn't benefit him at all since his ult damage is a bit unique as it scales on heavy attack damage. I really wanted to pick up Jianxin myself just based on her design, but going over what she does, she seems a bit too slow and is definitely outperformed by someone like Verina. For early game / casual players, I do imagine Jianxin is a good pick since she does provide a good bit of support and her parries are quite nice. It just becomes an issue taking her into more fast-paced battles. I have been hearing about some potential reworks for this character which I would definitely support and I'm hoping she will have a much better kit on release. Nothing confirmed though, so we'll just have to see on the day of launch. 3rd place would be Encore. Now this character does give me Klee vibes but a bit more aggressive. For any of you Genshin fans, let me know if I am off with this take. Encore is a DPS ranged character with a 4-string basic attack and the skill is just Encore unleashing a barrage of beams on the enemy. One cool aspect from the kit would be her charges attack when her gauge is filled. She pretty much blows up and enters the dissonant state, which also causes a good chunk of damage to enemies around her. The sweet thing is that you don't need to hold the charge attack button down the entire time and you can switch to another character and the sequence will still continue. Encore does reduce damage by 70% whilst in this state and it does pair well with her ultimate. When she pops the ult, she becomes more of a physical attacker and goes on a rampage dealing a flurry of attacks to enemies. Encore is a good DPS and with the use of her charged attack you can use her as a sub DPS where you would switch her in just to enter the dissonant state to cause AoE damage then switch back out to your main DPS. She can definitely put out some good numbers and is much better than Lingyang in my opinion, but does fall short to the last DPS on this list I am yet to mention. So yeah, Encore is someone you could pick up if you like her style as a DPS and potential sub DPS capabilities. However, she just has one flaw, she's a lolly. Moving on to 2nd place being Sephiroth. Sorry, I meant Calcharo. Calcharo is a very strong electro DPS character that can dominate in early game as well as late game. He has a normal 4-string attack basic, and his skill is gonna be a bit nostalgic for Genshin players. Calcharo can cast 3 electro attacks with his sword in a row. If not cast in a short time, it enters the cooldown. So very similar to Diluc in Genshin, you would actually want to use the same combo as well. The combo being basic skill, basic skill, basic skill for maximum efficiency. Once you do hit the enemy 3 times with your skill, the heavy attack switches to its second variation, which is a massive electro attack Calcharo swings down with. The ultimate allows Calcharo to enter his Deathblade gear state for 10 seconds, which ramps up his damage, and all of his basic attacks will deal electro damage. Just like Jiyan, the attacks Calcharo deals when he uses his ultimate does not scale on ultimate damage, but basic attack damage. So if you were to use Jianxin with Calcharo, he wouldn't benefit at all from the ult damage buff. Overall, Calcharo is a fairly easy DPS to play with and can do some really good damage. Also, he has great synergy with Yinlin, as you can use her as a sub DPS with Calcharo being the main DPS that will benefit from her 20% electro damage bonus when she switches out. So with that, if you are planning to pull for Yinlin, which I'm sure a lot of you are, Calcharo would be great with her for quite some time. However, just know he is a DPS character, so at some point in the future he will be unusable. Literally like Diluc in Genshin, from the best DPS to someone no one uses. So just bear that in mind if you are aiming to pick him up. But he does have the best character design from the standard banner, so who cares? Now the best standard banner character is Verina. They really had to make this lolly that busted, didn't they? Verina is a Spectro support character which is capable of healing and buffing your team. Now the fact that Verina can buff your team along with healing is a surprise to see for a character this early in the game. Verina's ult will be able to heal a good chunk of HP for the entire team and will mark enemies with the photosynthesis mark. When you hit enemies with the mark on them, you will heal additional HP per hit. Also, Verina's heavy attack is enhanced by her Forte circuit, which allows her to recover HP for her allies along with restoring more energy so she can ult sooner. Now the buffing aspect of her kit. Whenever Verina uses her skill or switches out, she will provide a 20% attack buff for the party for 20 seconds. Also, the outro skill itself heals the character that switches in for 6 seconds, along with providing 15% increased total damage for 30 seconds. Now this is insanely valuable since you can just keep switching Verina in and out to reapply a 20% attack buff and 15% increased damage for your main DPS. So this character would really make your DPS shine in dealing great numbers and has healing coming out of everywhere in her kit. Now let's say if you were about to take a fatal hit from a boss with your main DPS. One of Verina's passive skills will stop the character from falling and will provide them with a shield for 10 seconds which scales on her attack. This can be triggered once every 10 minutes, which isn't an issue since you really shouldn't be going down when Verina is throwing up heals at this point. This character I believe will last a very long time in this game. She heals your team through various ways and buffs her attack and damage significantly with 100% uptime. Best thing is, you don't even have to invest much in Verina since she is able to provide buffs and the revive off-field. And there you have it. Verina being the best character you can aim to pull for in the beginner banner since she would likely outlast all of the characters in terms of longevity. Calcharo is an amazing DPS that is very good for now but will have his downfall at some point, and that is certain. More of a reason why Jianxin is interchangeable with Encore and Calcharo. Depending on yourself as a player, if you don't mind Jianxin being a bit slow but providing extra protection, then she'll be a good pick. If you want to blitz through this game as quick as possible, Calcharo would be your pick. Encore and Lingyang are just inferior DPS characters to Calcharo. They're not bad, but Calcharo is simply better. There is a good chance there will be changes for these characters such as Jianxin, which I still have hope for. She could potentially take us by surprise with her reworks and secure second best or even maybe first. We will just have to wait and see. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and drop a like for more WutheringWaves content. Also, I would love to hear which character you guys are aiming for on the beginner banner, so comment down below. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.